Welcome to another PD Chat Show. Tonight it's Rob. Unfortunately, as you can see, there's only three of us on the screen. He's again stuck in the studio. He's working late, so he's hopefully can afford Christmas presents for for his family this year. But obviously, we do have our other amazing panelist, which has been through us since the beginning of the chat show, which is Mr. Pete Cater. Hi, Pete. How you doing?
Hello, I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. All the better for being here tonight. And obviously, we have a special guest every single week, and I'm really looking forward to this one because Russell actually makes me laugh whatever he does. So, it's Uriah Heep's drummer, people know him better as. Uh, he's actually up there for you, Pete. Yeah, he's obviously
not on my screen either.
he's known for many things, but you guys obviously watching maybe for Uriah Heep. But Russell Gilbrook, how are you doing, young man?
I'm fine, thank you very much. It's
Good,
great
good.
to be here. Thanks for asking me, Matt, and great to catch up with you and Pete. Have a good old chat about whatever.
Whatever, exactly. No, it's our privilege. Thank you very much. Just a few hellos before we move on. So, hello to Ben Roberts, Glyn Jones, Rachel Green, Ben Roberts. I've said that. Richie Burns. Hi guys, good to see you. Russ, Pete, and Matt. Thank you very much. Ollie User Skin. Kenneth Russell Everett. Hello, Mum and Dad. Thank you for joining again. You've been missing me. Mike Tuppett. Hello, guys. Again, if you've got anything to say, please put in the comments. I'll try my hardest to read out as many comments as I can throughout this evening. People out there, if you're watching, please follow us on Facebook so you can actually see more of these things happening. Just to tell you what's going to go on in the next, this end of this year, we haven't got one next week. I know, sorry, I can hear you groans out again. Oh no, why not? We've got to watch normal TV again. It's because in this little brown envelope, it's not my wages, by the way. That usually comes in a wheelbarrow. But it's a fantastic key. Now, if anybody's been following us on Facebook and different stuff, and obviously these chat shows we've been talking about as well, very briefly, we are moving into our own premises, actually in Redditch. So it's going to be an amazing place. But the only problem is it's an empty shell. So I'm going to take my drummer music hat off, and over the next couple of weeks, I am going to basically be a builder, decorator, electrician, mover, dustman, whatever you want to basically do anything to do with the kind of making a space suitable for a purpose that we have, and that's what I'll be doing, which means I need that day to actually that weekend to get everything ready, because I want to bring the last one of the series, which is on the 19th, from the actual PD cave, so you guys can see basically what is going to happen, where you'll be coming to the live events, and also what you'll basically be seeing on, hopefully on a weekly basis as well. So this hopefully will become bigger and grander. So that's what I'll be doing. So nothing next week. I'll remind you at the end. But hopefully live from the cave on the 19th. So please put that in diary.
I think you should just stream one of the old shows.
Just stream one. We may do that. You never know.
Or a compilation, right? When drum chat shows go wrong.
When drum shows goes wrong. I can't unfortunately.
Channel 5 kind of style.
yeah. It'll be right on the night chat shows. Yeah. It will be great, wouldn't it? We'll see what we can do. But thanks very much for supporting us as well. So, everybody out there, we start with a topic. Now, we're all missing our first love and passion, basically start out there performing to people. So I thought, what better way, basically coming and getting some spirit into everybody, is to talk about gigging. What goes on from your favourite gig? The after show parties. It's usually a cup of tea for me because I have to drive home. But all this kind of thing. So basically, that's the kind of thing that we're going to be sort of talking about tonight. So if you've got any comments, any questions, please put them in the comments, and say I'll get through as much as I can. So Russell, I'm going to come to you first. I'm going to basically ask everybody, and I'll do it myself. What has been your favourite gig?
The one I get paid for.
Pete, what has been... No, sorry.
And there's not many of them. My favourite gig. I'll tell you what. I love every single gig I've ever done, I think. I don't think I've ever done a gig I haven't liked. I mean, some gigs have got more favourable ingredients about them than others. Naturally, who doesn't want to play in front of 100,000 people? Okay. But it has its drawbacks as well. No sound checks. And, for me, a gig is about... I love to play the drums, and so that becomes the priority in everything I do. Setting up a great groove, whether it's rock, funk, pop, swinging, jazz, it doesn't matter what it is. You're laying down a fantastic rhythm and a groove for your fellow musicians to get on the same part of that quarter note and have a flipping ball. I mean, you get off as a musician with what you play, how you play, what you listen to, the fellow musicians, how they phrase, how they look at you, how you feel everything. The audience is secondary. The audience is the feedback, but you can't get the feedback if you're not getting your rocks off musically as a musician and with your fellow artists. So, whether it's in a small little 50-seater pub or little venue or 100,000 people, you still need those same elements for the whole situation to work.
Yes, I agree. Is there one particular venue you get excited about going back to over the years that you've been playing?
Oh God, there's too many, to be honest. I do 64 countries, so trying to bring back the memory banks on stuff is difficult. I mean, when we did a 3-band thing with Deep Purple and Wishbone Ash in South Africa, and they were indoor, 25,000 people, indoor sort of big arenas. Obviously, they were sold out because it's South Africa and they don't get tremendous amount of touring people out there. And that, because of the whole thing, the hotels were great, the venues were great, the people were very, up for the whole show. Cape Town and Durban was just like paradise anyway. It was everything about the whole trip was fantastic. It just accentuates the gigs. And those venues were just superb. I just absolutely adored it. And there's been, the Key Club in Los Angeles in America, a fantastic place. We played that with Blue Oyster Cult, and that's a fantastic venue. Coco in London, where we did one of our DVDs, is a great venue. I miss the Astoria. Some people did like the Astoria in London, some didn't, but it was an iconic venue. And the Shepherd's Bush is another great venue. I mean, and Hammersmith Odeon. I mean, you can go on forever. There's so many decent venues that have qualities about them that to pick one or two is very, very difficult.
Yeah, great. I remember one thing because I've done a couple of things at the Hammersmith Odeon, was Apollo now, isn't it? Or Carlsberg, or whatever it's called now. It's the backstage. It is Spinal Tap there, isn't it? So it's got amazing. Yeah. And it was a case where I was wandering around, going up the stairs, going, dressing room's here somewhere, and then I lost my dressing room. Then I lost going back to the stage because I ended up in some kind of other production room, which I don't recognise.
They're all rubbish in London. All the dressing rooms are rubbish. The last thing they think about.
I know. It's just like, but that always make me laugh because it's like everyone sees this grand, massive theatre where all the iconic people are playing, and it's like there's still most probably someone's still getting lost back there, even through lockdown. Pete, have you got a favourite gig?
I've got certain venues that I really like, and because much of what I do, or much of what I do for preference, is acoustic. It's all about rooms where the acoustics are amazing, where you can, where the stage is lively enough that you can really play. Like your drums aren't having all the life sucked out of them by heavy carpets or curtains and stuff like that. And one of my favourites is Cadogan Hall, just off Sloane Square in Chelsea.
Yeah.
We've done a number of shows there with the big band over the years. And some of the best venues I ever played were in Japan. And I was out there for 5 weeks in 1997 with the Glenn Miller Band. and obviously you're playing like big halls in places like Tokyo and Osaka and Hiroshima and so on. And then you go into this like little town that's like nothing, just like a petrol station, a 7-Eleven shop, and some little houses. But right there in the middle of this tiny little town, they'd have these amazing concert halls, and they were just so beautifully equipped and acoustically fantastic. I mean, so it is. I haven't travelled anything like as much as Russ has, but I've done my time. I've done my time on sitting in airports and sitting on aeroplanes. And the one place I really would love to go back and play again is Japan, because they have these amazing venues, and the response to the audience. They don't kind of. It's a little bit more sedate the way they react, but they really do react, and the appreciation is something
I
really
agree.
extraordinary.
I agree with that because
there's hardly any COVID there either. So
great place to go at the moment. It's once you said that, it just brings back to mind the last time I was there. It's like it's almost like an arts centre, isn't it? It's like it's an amazing concert, and there's loads of things. It's they've done an amazing job out there. Basically, it's like as I say, the acoustics and it's like the aesthetics of the buildings as well. I can remember, I think it was in Niigata, which was up north. We were very lucky. We got taken to see a beautiful concert hall, and they had a no theatre. So people who don't know no theatre, that's a traditional Japanese theatre. It's usually done on stage, and you see them basically floating about. It's very, very arts, amazing kind of thing. And it's usually done on a walkway. So basically comes walk and then it opens out onto this little square. So basically you saw people float in and float out. And the architect of this particular venue made one actually shot out into the river, and it looked absolutely amazing to see that. And as I say, they're wonderful people. But Pete, when you was there, I say you might be the same, Russ. It's like when you was there, when you finished, it's like oh, and then all of a sudden there was a massive round of applause. It's just like they're so appreciative of it, but you don't get that response when you're playing. Did you feel that way, Pete?
yeah, well, they're more reserved than European and American audiences are. But I think that just comes out of this very respectful, polite national character that they have, and the fact that they have, even in you can imagine going to somewhere like Astwood Bank and finding like an 800-seat concert hall with absolutely perfectly engineered acoustics, and it just says to me quite a lot about the value and the importance that they place on culture in different parts of the world. That maybe we don't as much as we once did. Maybe here in Europe and here in the UK. I mean, to me, my idea of hell would be playing in a 20,000 seat arena with absolutely awful acoustics where you can't play. And I like small rooms. I like the people who've paid to come in. I like them to be able to hear what I'm playing rather than what the sound engineer thinks I'm playing. So I'm all about acoustics. It's just like a really, really big deal for me. And studio is the same. You have the same issues in the studio as you do with live playing when you record something and it comes back and it doesn't represent what you actually did. And this is when on those rare occasions when I do go to gigs myself, I like to go to small rooms. I like to be close enough to the artist performing that I can actually hear what they're playing before it gets to the microphones. And I really got a very strong sense of just getting back to the topic. There's a very strong sense of that in Japan, just how highly they value culture and how perhaps they put a higher value on musicianship there than maybe we do here now. And I think that's probably changed over the last few decades, and with all these things there are positives and negatives about it. But that for me, that's the some of the happiest performing memories that I have come from being in Japan.
Fantastic. Andy Workman, Peter James, Ewan Crawford and McKee, and thank you very much for watching, and hello. Richard Horton, hello Richard. Hope all is well, everyone. Matt Lacey, drummer, BDC drummers, hi Pete, hi Russell. I own a Bluebird. Can I get a hi as well, please? No, thank you very much for watching, guys. Absolutely brilliant. I suppose one of my favourite wasn't the favourite venue. It was actually just my favourite gig, and I can literally always go back to this one every single time. I was very, very fortunate about how many years ago? It was just the early mids, kind of the noughties. I got a phone call to go down to the Dartington Summer Festival, and said, "Would you come down for a week?" And we're basically got this new project going. It's basically like Indian and Western cultures basically meeting together, and it's basically with Ravi Shankar's band. And I was like, yes. And it was the most amazing time. I spent a week with him, learning his stuff. He dictates everything. So us Westerners, we had someone actually dictating music and everything else. And when we finally got down to the actual gig itself, in the Grand Hall at Dartington, in the grounds there. It's called the Grand Great Hall, but it's not very great or grand. You can only most probably get about 200 people in there. But there was a queue twice as long down the road, all down the side, the quadrant and everything else. And they said, "Would you mind doing the gig again after repeat?" Because it was only it's like one extended piece was basically like about 90 minutes long, and we all said yes, please. It was the most amazing time. And meeting, obviously, legend that is Ravi Shankar as well, was just like unbelievable. So that, guys, is my favourite gig, and that was it. Didn't like the venue, but the gig was amazing. And we did it twice, back to back. It was amazing. So there we go. That's mine. Russell, Daniel, thank you very much. David Lipsum, evening, gentlemen. Hello, Russell, from Dave there. Hello. So yeah, Richard Tuddenham. Hello, Richard. Thanks also for watching. This now comes down to worst gig. It has to be worst gig, worst venue. We all got these. We've all got. My uncle called them the dark glasses gigs, so he didn't want to get recognised. Russell, can you recall anything of that level?
God.
I can see your face going through. Which one can I say?
Well, I have done a few bad venues in America. When Heep first went back to America, unfortunately, through logistics of bad management and how promoters perceive the band once you don't tour in the country for a while, we went back and we played some quite dire places, which was a bit disheartening for the band to come in there expecting to play in front of 2,000 people, and we can't even get our PA spec in there and stuff. It really does put you on a bit of a downer, because obviously you're touring a lot, you're travelling a lot, you want to give your best performance, and you can only really do that if the circumstances allow you to do that. And when compromises happen, it backtracks itself to the band, and now you can't relax and give the performance to the people that you want to do. So they're quite bad. But on a different scale, the other bad ones is I just don't like playing with bad musicians. I can't help it. I mean, it's, at the end of the day, the quarter note is what it is, and you need to study and learn. Everyone's responsible for the time. The drummer is not responsible for the time. So people listening, if you don't play drums, take note. Everyone's responsible for the time, but you've all got to feel where that quarter note is. And the magic happens when everyone's feeling the quarter note at the right part of the quarter note. And there's nothing worse than stretching that quarter note, because you've got a bass player that's trying to force the tempos, or you've got a guitarist that plays too far behind the beat or whatever. Time is very important. It's the magic that makes stuff groove, swing in straight and swing time. And, to to me, bad gigs, I can't get my rocks off. I can't force someone to play better than what they are. And I know everyone needs experience. I know everybody suffers a little bit with their playing and with nerves and just their general standard. I'm not knocking that. But there comes a time when sometimes those gigs do become a bit wearing because you find yourselves plodding along through the gig. And at the end of the day, as I said, I play the drums the first and last gig. The first gig is the most exciting thing in the world. And why wouldn't I want to give my most exciting, most special, beautiful gig if it was going to be my last gig? And that's my thought process, which is why I never get bored when I play. So I need that excitement and that magic and that passion. And if something interferes with that, that makes a bad gig for me.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah, well, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Really. Simon Wincup, thank you very much for watching. Guys, I forgot to mention, if you've got a favourite venue or favourite gig, please put it in the comments. We'd like to hear about yours as well. It may be, your favourite local, which obviously you get, that's your place that you play. Or maybe it's like at a festival that you've done or whatever. Please, let's just hear in the comments. Please put it in. We'd love to hear what your favourite slide gig or sort of venue, or both. That'd be fantastic. Pete, have you been disappointed, venues or gigs wise?
Oh, yeah.
One way to put it, yeah.
I mean, I've been a gigging drummer since 1977, and the number of gigs that actually where everything absolutely fell into place and was as close to perfect as it could be, barely gets into double figures over those 43 years. And I've been during all this time of inactivity. I've been reflecting a great deal on how it used to be and how it was when I was young in the Midlands. The apprenticeship and all the different bands and all the different clubs, and hotels. I mean, there were bands everywhere. I mean, I'm talking about late 70s, early 80s. There were musicians playing everywhere. And some of them were not that great, but there was so much work to be had back then that, even me as like a teenager with a only partially formed skill set was able to go and play. And some of the things that you would do would be, really inspiring, and they would be really fired up, and some of them would be awful. But it's all, it's all part of the big picture of learning about. You learn about music from good gigs, and you learn about music from bad gigs in equal measure. And people often, in a kind of wider sense, people often mistake success and failure for each other. And something that you think might have been a great success maybe actually wasn't. Something you think was a really negative experience actually pushes you towards something that ends up being really positive. But I just remember those very early days when I was in my middle and late teens, around the West Midlands. There were loads of gigs in Birmingham, in Coventry, and Wolverhampton, and Stoke-on-Trent, and everywhere. There was just stuff going on everywhere, and it was a great way of learning. And you learn from good gigs and you learn from bad gigs, and there's all sorts of things that can mitigate how a gig plays out. It could be the people you're playing with, it could be the audience, it could be the acoustics, it could be the venue, it could be the parking. It could be the fact that there's no sandwiches or anything like that, and all of it just adds to this whole experience of what it is to be a working musician, and it's not always about playing the biggest venues and having platinum albums and things like that. There's just as much experience to be gained from playing at grassroots, and it's something I've never lost touch with.
Yeah, I think we all appreciate the grassroots stuff, because It's that kind of thing. Obviously, there's a lot of people, we're very fortunate. We do it as our livelihood. Obviously, our passion is our livelihood. It's fantastic. I can't think of anything else I'd want to do in life. But there's people out there, that they're working. They basically just gig at the weekend, and they're almost like propping up the music industry. I think we had an industry chat show. I think it was July kind of time, with a couple of the industries, Dave from Hardcase and Chris from Botworks, and they were saying it's like if it wasn't for those kind of guys who keep buying the gear and everything else, it would basically props up what the professionals, because we're not buying gear, well, unless you're basically a collector and have a disease, which most of us have. But you usually don't. You have the stuff that you have. But these grassroots stuff. So if we support those guys, first of all, talent can basically come from it as well. We just don't know what's out there. I suppose it's like the sporting scene, isn't it? They start young, basically, it's like the hand chosen. And there's some fantastic musicians, very very young musicians, are playing some incredible music and standards these days. I think it's really important to still, as I say, I love the grassroots, so I try and get out as much as I can. The only problem is everyone usually is doing the same thing when you are. That's the only problem, isn't it? We've got Tom Green, hello. Thanks for watching. Penny Reynolds. We've got Matt Lacey says, in response to your what you just said, Russ, quite right, Russ. Everyone has responsible for time. As I've started playing with better musicians in jazz quartets, I've been allowed and told to be more free in my playing, as they're all holding the time. Yeah, as I say, I can't remember. I think it was it our chat with Todd Zuckerman, Pete, when was talking about how important is that to work with those guys, especially like your bass player and everything, the people that you really look into. But obviously, everyone looks into everyone, but those kind of like that rhythm section, it is important, isn't it, to have those people around you, with basically you can basically then relax actually at the gig, because you're not worried about anything in that sense, are you? Everyone's basically doing their the music justice.
Yeah, it's one thing to know how to play your instrument, to have like technique, facility, and whatever. It's a whole other thing to know how to play your instrument with other people. That's a that's a completely different thing. You can have all the chops in the world, and if you can't relate musically to the people who are around you, then it's all for nothing.
Yeah.
And that also includes the people that continue to play with backing tracks. That's not playing with musicians. That's you might as well put on your own metronome and play along to that, because that's what it is. It's a piece of music that's played in time, and you play along to it. You can't shift. You can't sit on a groove. You can't push a groove. You can't have that special chemistry where you may play a certain musical phrase because you have an understanding with your fellow musician. It's just that live human chemistry that is the magic of music. It doesn't matter which way you try and go around it. It doesn't matter how you practice. It doesn't matter how good you are and what backing track fantastic stuff you've got. At the end of the day, the magic of music comes from human beings interacting and getting on. For me, anyway.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
That's why I have to commend. I have to commend Pete so much, and Ian Palmer, and that still go down that heavy duty jazz. I call it a heavy duty jazz world, because obviously the jazz gigs are not as plentiful as the other aspects. Simply because the people got to remember this. It is the foundation of, as far as I'm concerned, drumming is jazz.
Totally.
You have to experience jazz to a high level to have a clear understanding of playing the drums, in my opinion.
That's where it all started. That's where it came from.
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah. Pete, did you want to come? Because I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah. Well, backing tracks, and good backing tracks. They're from from my perspective, they're a great teaching aid. But the thing about a backing track is it's not listening to you. And, they're great to play along with. It's far better to work with a backing track than just to play with a metronome. I mean, when I'm practicing, a lot of the time I'm listening to records. If I'm doing hands, hello. If I'm doing, working my hands, I'm playing a record at the same time. And so there's some sort of musical reference in my technique practice. But those backing tracks, useful though they are, valuable though they are as teaching and practice aids, they can't respond to you. And until you have the experience of your playing making somebody do something, then you haven't got that really crucial little corner piece of the jigsaw without which it's never going to be complete.
Yeah. Hello to James Angel. Thanks for coming on. Kenneth Russell Everett has said we played the Old Duke, the Bell in Bristol. The Old Duke Bell in Bristol. People loved the band. They loved this swinging band. Finishes people shouting more and more. We, to me, beat part of the night. It can't basically get, so I think he's just, oh yeah, sorry, but ringing the wrong one. But yeah, the gigs they shouted for more. But we know we have to go home, as to pack up quite a few feet and return to Cardiff. Long hours, but we love it. As I say, it's as musicians, the whole kind of thing, especially for, I think I see, the kind of anecdote on Facebook, is that musicians, old jazz musicians, thousands of £5,000 worth of instruments, like £8,000 worth of car, £50 worth of fuel, £20 fee. It's that kind of thing where, do we do it for? Well, obviously we have to do it. Obviously we've got bills to pay. It is our livelihood. But sometimes it's not about the money, is it? It is literally about the music, and should it always be about the music? Well, for us, and especially the way Russell's doing it is all about the music. It just so happens that we get paid to do it. But is there stuff that, for instance, Russell, you'd go out for, and you say, "Look, guys, I'd love to come. Some fantastic musicians, but it's a charity gig." Is that kind of thing that lies nicely with you? Because there's this whole thing about pay to play and all kinds of stuff. I just want to hit on that because it has come up recently. Pay to play, especially obviously people asking people to go and play in the pub gardens for a pint.
Well, let's put it this way. I choose if I want to play the drums or not. So if someone gives me a phone call and says, "Look, we haven't got the budget to pay you £5,000 to do our album. Our budget only comes to £500." It's my decision whether I feel as though I want to do it, and I feel as though they're being honest with me, that their budget stretches to that, and I feel very honoured that they've asked me, and I have to weigh up all those things to decide to do it. And if I decide to do it, of course it's not a money thing. I will never put money in front of my drums, because I think my drumming then will suffer. It's like it's funny, I put my kids, I put everything underneath my drumming, because I have to put drumming as my first and priority as in passion and love, simply because if that starts to come down, I now have fear that my performance and my passion comes down. I can't risk that. Everything else will get the benefit if I maintain a fantastic level of professionalism, love and passion for my instrument. But on the point of paying for nothing, no, these venues have got to pack it in. I'm sorry, we've all suffered, but that doesn't mean to say that we have to suffer more than the people. If they can't get the money in from somewhere, why should you expect someone whose job it is, when they earn a living playing a musical instrument, to come and actually work for nothing? You can't get a gas guy coming round to do your boiler or anything for nothing. You can't get your Asda's 2 weeks shopping and say, "Oh, I'll have that this week for nothing." What's all that about? There has to be a bit of common sense involved. Now, obviously, you've got the semi-pros. This is the problem. You've got the semi-pros versus the pros, because the semi-pros, it's not vital for their money, and they love music. And of course they want to perform, and I understand that. And there's nothing worse than not being able to perform in front of people and get an enjoyment factor of people enjoying what it is that you're doing. But there has to come a point, if too many people do it, then the people that rely on some top-up money or any money as a professional musician, they can't go and do that because it's their livelihood. It's going to cost them money to even get there to do the gig.
Mm. Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah. Pete, do you want to come in anything on that, or Russ
Yeah, well,
covered it?
this again makes me think about how it was decades and decades ago, when there was actually more work than there was players good enough to do that work. And I remember my dad in the 60s and 70s. He had a day job. He was a good drummer, and his diary was full from like Tuesday to Saturday, Sunday. 5, 6 nights a week, every week, playing all kinds of gigs in hotels, clubs, all nightclubs, all pubs, even. But the thing was, all these gigs paid proper money. That it was like half of his income. His day job, is like a white collar office job, and his night job as a drummer. They had equal value in terms of the income that they were bringing into the household. And I'd say he would be somewhere. We still have some of his old diaries, and all these gigs that he was doing back then. Pro musicians, of whom there were far fewer back then, would not have done because they were busy doing, I guess, more important things. So there was this whole layer of what when you talk the whole idea of like the semi-pro musician kind of doesn't exist anymore. So certainly not anything like it used to back in those days. And there would be all this work that professional musicians were not available to do, didn't have time to do, but paid properly. And this is how my dad made half of his living. Being a semi-pro musician, in the old definition of what that actually meant back then, it was a respectable and lucrative way of making money, and playing decent music with decent players.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Pete. Just better mention, Joe Morris, thank you very much. She's just said, popping in on my break. I do believe she did message us earlier saying she had to go to work, so we'll catch on replay. So thank you for joining us in your break time. Is that way you can basically just spread out to all your colleagues there. They can watch as well. Hello to Gaynor Armitage, Brian Borowski. Thank you again for watching, John Turgeon, beg your pardon. We've got some messages on there. Absolutely brilliant. So keep them coming, guys. It's as much as your show as well as ours. Obviously, you can only just hear us, but obviously you can see everybody else's comments there. So please put all your different comments. Obviously about gigging, it's like favourite venues, worst venues, favourite gigs, all kinds of stuff. Just put anything in there. Or again, if you've got any questions you want to ask us, and obviously Russell, because he's a special guest tonight. This may be the only chance you'll speak to Russell before he goes back in the studio, and then he'll be flying off around the world again. You just don't know. So get your questions in when you can. I think. Matthew Devonis. Sorry, beg your pardon. I thought I missed one out there. Richie Burns has actually put, you're a good jazz player, Russ. I remember seeing you with the Chris Barber Jazz Band.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. It's actually quite astonishing that most people, because my popularity, if you like, if you want to call it that, has become, because Uriah Heep, which is a very legendary band, fantastic. A lot of people don't know me from my jazz, but I was born playing jazz. My first, Georgie Scott, bless his heart, taught me for the first 2 years before I went to Bob Armstrong. Bob Armstrong was a massive advocate of jazz, which kept doing. All the gigs I sat in as a child was jazz. And my dad was into jazz. And all I did was jazz, 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 jazz. It went from jazz to jazz funk to jazz, jazz rock. Spectrum album with Billy Cobham. I was obsessed with Benny Goodman, with Teddy Wilson and Gene Krupa, and because I adore swing, I adore the drums, and I adore the buzz of swing. I love big band. I love jazz to death. If you want to know the time, Oscar Peterson, that one. And Ed Thigpen actually came up to me and commended me about my jazz playing. You're really good for a white guy and all that bit. When I was doing some festivals with Chris Barber, and to join Chris Barber's band was, extraordinary because, as I said, those type of gigs weren't really out there, and it just fell into my lap because I'd done 5.5 years with Alan Price, keyboard player from the Animals, and they had the same booking agent in England, and I got recommended by Vic Gibbons to join Chris Barber, who called me up. And I tell you what, I value that so much I can't tell you because, I was able to play with Harold Ashby, one of Duke Ellington's saxophonists, and I sat down, I was on a 3-week tour with us in Europe, and I sat down almost nearly every breakfast time and tried to drill out of him. I wanted to know the nitty gritty of what he considers makes a great jazz drummer, what he listens for, and just get as much as I could out of the real guys as possible because I wanted to get better. I wasn't happy, and I should never am happy with my playing. I always want to improve in some way so that I can continue to learn and just be so in awe of the fact that there's something out there for me to focus on and to just improve upon. It doesn't matter whether it's just that quarter note swing. If there's a way in which, a subtle way in which I can make that swing even more, that's going to light up my fellow musicians, I'm up for it, mate. That's the way it is. And not a lot of people know about me with jazz playing. I toured 220 days a year I did with Chris Barber for 6 years.
There we go. Andy Kennedy, thank you very much for joining. Sarah Eden, thank you very much. She's popped up there. Thank you very much for joining as well. Guys, I see some names here I haven't seen before. Thank you very much for joining for the first time. If you are watching for the first time, please like and follow our page, the Palace Drum Clinic, because we've got lots of stuff coming up, especially in the new year. And I don't want to leave anybody behind with all the great news. So thank you very much. Richie came back and said, Russ kindly gave Ron Bowden his ride symbol. Do you remember that?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Because what happened was, when it was the 40th anniversary of Chris Barber's band, he got the original band back together. It was Lonnie Donegan on banjo and Colin Bowden on drums. And we did a few bits and pieces, and Ron was obviously playing with Kenny Ball. And we just got on really well as people. And he really liked the particular ride that I had. So I gave it to him. Bless his heart.
Yeah. Did you have more than one ride at that time, hopefully?
Yeah, I did, yeah. Because as everyone knows, and Pete, I'd like to hear your views on this as well, as everyone knows, it's the key to jazz is you've got to have a goddamn fantastic sounding ride cymbal. You're playing the signature musical phrase on it. It's so important that people are hearing out for that ride.
Yeah, and it's the magnetic north of the swing beat. It's what not only how you play it and but the sound of the instrument you use as well. And one great ride cymbal can make a career. Look at we've all seen the pictures of Mel Lewis with that famous cymbal with the chunks missing out of it. But everybody wanted him to play it because he just made it sound so. And that to me,
I found that with Gene Krupa as well.
Mm-hmm.
I found that exactly with Gene Krupa. I think that the way in which he approached that ride, I mean, my God, he used to swing.
Yeah, I remember that big 24-inch that he started using in the early 50s. You could see it on a lot of video film footage at that time, and it sounds very distinctive on a lot of the records, and it's your signature. It's and to me, the overtone of the ride cymbal is just as much a part of the orchestration as the saxophone section and trombone section. And so you've got to have that. It's like gravy. If you've got a dry
Pete, it's
ride cymbal,
amazing.
it's like having your dinner with no gravy on it.
It is, but Pete, it's amazing the amount of clinics I've been to, and when people are talking about jazz, it always gets spoken about the technique, but they forget how important the right symbol is, because people have asked me when I've done clinics, and I've pointed out and I said, I'm sorry guys, at the moment I can't demonstrate the jazz thing for you properly, because if I did it on this particular ride, it wouldn't feel and sound any good at all, because it's a rock ride. It's not a
Yeah,
jazz ride symbol.
yeah.
Yeah, as I say, it's
That's a whole other kind of subject area about showing up with the right equipment. And, it doesn't matter how well you can play. Your drums have got to sound right. They've got to sound right to the music. They've got to be tuned right. The cymbals have got to sound right to the music. And
Well, that's why with Uriah Heep, when we're going to do an album, I've got 6 snare drums, I have 3 ride cymbals, I have 3 different types of China cymbals, I have 3 different types of hi-hats, and I make sure I've got about half a dozen spare crashes, because
right,
I don't know what's going to sound good in that particular studio with those mics and the outboards and everything that's going on, plus what the producer's got to say. You've got to, as you say, you've got to be prepared. You've got to accommodate the situation to try and do the best musical performance you can.
Sure. I think there's a lot of things to. It's one of the things. Okay, what we can actually talk about here on the Palace Drum Clinic, just to let people insight what I said earlier. It's like, please follow us, because there's some great stuff happening in the new year. We're thinking very heavily, actually becoming it's like a membership kind of base where you can find out tips and tricks and lessons and stuff like that at a very affordable price, and that's the kind of thing that we want to basically give out as well. Be prepared. I think it's the main thing. I loaned dear friend Josh, actually, who's now working with us alongside of us at the Palace Drum Clinic. He actually went to go to studio record his own album. It's just got finishing off laying the drums down, and he said, "Have you got any snare drums?" And I said, "Look, I think this one, what you're saying, but please take these ones just in case." And he went, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, you must." Because you don't know this. We've talked about the acoustics. You don't know, what they're actually looking for and that kind of stuff. So it is being prepared, isn't it? Pete, I just
In
want
everything, Matt, in everything.
Yeah.
Preparation is how I got the Heep gig. Preparation is how I got Chris Barber's gig, and preparation is how I got Alan Price's gig. All the big gigs that I got, John Farnham, everything was down to preparation, because you need to go in there knowing 10 times more than what they expect you to know, because the idiots that go in there for the same gig struggle to do the things that they've been asked to do. If you go in there hands down knowing absolutely everything and more, you can relax knowing the fact, you can ease into it. With Uriah Heep audition, there was 5 songs to learn, and these people were struggling to do the 5 songs. They were struggling to do a double-handed shuffle because they've got a rubbish left hand to do the double, so they couldn't do the swing properly, very important to the feel and groove. And second of all, they were just struggling with certain aspects. I learned the whole live album, for goodness sake. I said I could do a gig tomorrow. No one else did. So how's that going to sit? That's called preparation. That's called trying to guarantee the opportunity of something coming up, making sure you can nail that gig, because you won't get a second go. And once you get your arse roasted, mate, you don't want to go back there. I'm telling you.
You heard it here, guys. It's amazing. Do you know what? I'm glad we actually got on the preparation thing, Russ, because I say one of the things I want to talk about is how do you actually prepare for a gig? But before we just say that, it's just a couple of things we want to read out. I'm Borowski saying that you ain't kidding about the right cymbals. It seems to it could make or break you in a song that doesn't sound right. Well, completely, isn't it? That's why. People say you have a disease, you got X amount. Well, no, because and I say to them, why do you need another cymbal? Why do you need another drum? I said, well, wife, why do you need more shoes? You've got loads of shoes. Should they do the same thing? That, oh no, well that one goes with that outfit. That one goes with. Then I need a handbag with that one. Rest my case. Sorry about that. But yeah. Ian Stocks, hello. Thank you very much for watching. Hugo Loudon, thanks for joining us. Brian has said they always ask me, excuse me, what not to. Why do I get just a drum room and tell them every one of these drums are for purpose? There are 4 or 5 kits there, and they're all different styles of music. Well, as I say, horses for courses, isn't it? You don't take a donkey to the a steeplechase, do you? So, hi guys, for there. Dave White. Dave White says hi, Russ.
No, Dave, good lad he is. He does it. He does our website from America. Great guy.
Oh, great. Well, if you do the website, please share this away to all the Heep fans. That'd be fantastic. If you can do that, Dave, that'd be amazing. Just one question before we get on the preparation side of things. Richie just asked, Russ, is your kit flown around the world, or do they supply kits for you?
Well, 90% of the time it's freighted around the world, and obviously we get the odd time when there's a fly-in when it's just not cost effective to do all of the shipping. So I have to get a hire kit. As we all know, there's a bit of a hit and miss thing. And I'll tell you the biggest problem, if there's any hire companies out there, please listen to me, right? Yes, my contract states new skins on for obvious reasons, right? It doesn't matter how good your shell is. If the skin's rubbish, you've had it, right? But they change the top heads. They leave the bottom heads have been on there for 25 years when they got the kit. Now, it's very hard to tune any drum if the bottom head is rubbish. The bottom head is as important as the top head. Please change the bottom heads, because if the bottom head is buggered, you're now struggling to tune it properly and get a decent sound out of it.
It's common sense.
I agree with that. Yeah. I do remember once turning up to do a festival in Zaragoza in Spain. And the hire company provided a top quality set of drums, but they put a batter head on the bottom of the snare drum. They haven't got a snare.
Unbelievable.
Well, you do wonder what these people think about it. So, Brian Browski, thank you very much. These guys are making very good points. For us, it's common sense, isn't it? That's all it is. But obviously, this is our livelihood. So we have to be the thing. Dave White, we have. Thank you very much.
Oh, cheers, Dave. Nice one.
Yeah,
mate.
cheers. Also, tell them to like the Facebook page as well. That'd be amazing. Penny Reynolds, talking of producers, how does Russell get round them to his way of thinking, AJ, in terms of snare selection? Well, you just tell them I'm playing this one, don't you?
I can tell you, right? You've got to be a nice guy. No one wants to work with someone who's a bit of a naughty person. I can declare for you.
Well done, thank you.
So you've got to be compromising and accommodating in this business. You won't get anywhere if you're not a nice guy. So what I tend to do is I'll speak to obviously it's different when I'm a session. When I was doing session, you do what you're told. So if the producer says X, Y, Z, you do it. Right? You don't question it. Okay, you might be able to give a suggestion if you ask, but you usually zip it, get on with it, and deliver the goods of what they want. But in Uriah Heep, obviously, there's more mutual respect. I'm I'm allowed to be my own artist, if you like. So I spoke to Jay, and I said to him, this is Jay Russ did the last album, and because I like to be courteous, I said, look, Jay, what's your take on the drums? Is there any? Do you have a preference on skins? Do you have a preference on dampening? Because obviously I'm bringing everything in. I can get any skins you want. I can bring all the dampening, moon gel, tape, foam, blanket, whatever you want, I'll bring it in. This is when you know you've got a good producer. I don't know, Russ. I need you to set the kit up, let me come in, you hit it, and then I'll tell you. Oh, thank you. So you're actually going to hear me as a musician, a drummer, and then make a decision. That's fantastic. And what he did was he just went, that's a snare drum, brilliant. Don't need any dampening. I'm just going to close off the bass drums because they need to be a little bit more secluded and just play. Absolutely. So the drums breathed. It was fantastic. the drum's actually ringing. I can't believe it. Fantastic. And as snare drum choice, I just use 2 snare drums. And the Great British Drum Company snare drum I used, which was a Legend one that came with the kit, is on 75% of our last album. And because it just sounded so good.
There we are. Does that answer your question, Penny? I hope it does. Pete, coming to you about preparation. A lot of people obviously, it's like, we sit in a car for I don't know how long. We basically have to hump gear and everything else and all kind of stuff around. It's just what people see in that couple of hours, and then obviously we have to go home, isn't it? How do you prepare on just a day-to-day gig? Because obviously,
Well, to me, it's like a constant process, and that all boils down to how you organise your life when you're practicing, and for me, I practice for 2 reasons. I practice because of the music that I'm going to play, and I practice because of the music that I just have played. And you're either preparing the things that you're going to do. You're obviously in slightly more normal circumstances. You're preparing for the things that are in your diary, and you're also reflecting upon what you've recently played. What the gigs you've done in the last days or weeks, and what came out of that, and what inspires you to get better at what you do. And this is it's not like this. It's not like some tiny little special niche activity. This is just a part of the whole big picture of being a lifelong player. And say you practice for music that you're going to play, and you practice because of music that you have played. And the more you can do, the more. There was a little moment of nonsense on last week's show that I felt I had to shut down quite abruptly about technique. Technique gives you confidence. Okay, the more you can do, the more confident you are. Doesn't mean you're going to do it all the time. It's technique is not like winning 10 million quid on the lottery and buying 15 million Mars bars. And you just use it very sparingly and carefully. And the more you've got, it's like any language, because after all, music is a language. The more of the language you've learned and absorbed, the more of it you can bring to the table, you can take to the workplace. And then that little magic element is knowing when to do things, and more importantly, when not to do things.
If I can just add to that, Pete, actually, my take on technique, actually, I think people get the word technique muddled up. They think technique, and now they're starting to think of a million beats.
Yeah, they think it's chops, like playing fast.
Technique, to me, is being able to play the drums, irrelevant of how simple or technical it is, but playing it in time and producing a great sound. That's it. That's what technique does. Because when someone plays something simple with bad technique, it sounds rubbish. And when someone plays something fast with bad technique, it sounds rubbish. When someone has got good hands, right? It doesn't matter how you hold the sticks, because the sound is the most important thing. We get booked and we get paid to produce a great sound on the drum kit. I'm not interested in how we hold the sticks. I'm not interested in technique. What I'm asking you to do is, Steve Jordan hasn't got the technique of Dennis Chambers. And Dennis Chambers, does he groove like Steve Jordan? He does, but in a different way. But they both are phenomenal. And technique is about creating the great sound and within the framework of great time. That's it.
Yeah. Can I just come in with that, because I've got a lovely little story about that. But just before, Jonathan Phillips, thank you very much for watching. Richard Burns just said, I spent hours preparing for a show, like you have said, to learn it, do your homework, get to the gig and nail it. Indeed. Now, this little story about what you just said, Russell. Unfortunately, can't do it this year. But the people who connected with the Simon John's Vintage Show, UK National Drum Fair, and obviously the Palace Drum Clinic in the Midlands area. We have find other people to come up, but unfortunately they're not available. But you used to go out for a little drummers' Christmas lunch. Last year was one of my favourites because it was the most funny circumstances, stories that will happen, and so many people there. But Henry Spinetti, he's been for the last few years because obviously he only lives down the road. So he really enjoys coming out and having some food, having some drink, having some stories, stuff like that. But he was telling us one story that it was to do, I think, with the concert for George. So George Harrison, the Albert Hall, and he said that's his favourite gig ever. As because obviously he's looking over, he's got Ringo Starr over here. He's got obviously he often sees Eric Clapton, but he's got all these scenes. He's like. You watch him; he's like a kid in a candy store. It's amazing. But someone said to him, "Oh, watching that's just grade 1 drumming, isn't it?" He goes, "Yeah, it is grade 1 drumming, but it's how you do it." In other words, it's simple drumming, but can you make sure that those guys are playing the best they possibly can? Are you keeping away of what he's going to be doing in a second? Are you making sure? Do you know what I mean? It's like, are you getting the sound that you want out, kind of thing? It's everything to do with that as well, isn't it? And it's definitely what you said. And
they don't understand that the way in which you hold a stick determines how the sound that you create with one beat. For goodness sake. They don't understand that you're not creating something so that someone can play at 100 miles an hour. You're creating something so someone can play musical drums.
Yeah. And because the drums, and a lot of people I don't want to say outsiders of our circle, of drumming circle, that is. But so people who don't understand the drums, that's what I'm trying to say. They say, oh, it's a loud instrument. No, it's not. It's the person who plays it makes it loud. It's how you play it. It is. It's just an instrument. We've all sat next to horn players who basically you almost deafen. You think, well, they're loud. I'm not loud. It's just. It literally is. It's. What does Gary say? He said there's 3 things that you need basically. Touch, timing, and I forget there was the 3 T's. I forget about. But your touch is the most important one. He says. And it is, isn't it? It makes or break, and that's why you can hear say, "Well, I've got that drum kit, but I don't sound like such." Well, yeah. First of all, you're not them, and it may not be the same kind of drum kit. Maybe just the model you have. So it is that.
Matt, I said to you when I came up and did the clinic, I said I have never found a volume knob on a drum kit yet. No one ever will. So that means you've got to learn to play from just above 0 to 10. You've got to learn what it is that happens to that drum when you experiment with volumes, because there are times when you need to bash the rubbish out of it, and there are times when you need to be as subtle and as quiet as a mouse. The musical project you're involved with will determine that.
Yeah, agreed. Guys, keep your comments coming because they've got some absolutely fantastic ones there, anecdotes as well as like what you've done and everything else. Obviously, if you're on there, say hi as well. So keep your comments coming because as these things always happen, we've only got 25 minutes left. So please get your comments in, all your questions, because obviously, we all have things to do after this, like have a drink. So please put your comments in there. But it'd be lovely to hear your stories. Are you guys? Russell, I think you might be slightly different. So the whole kind of like the touring package. But are you as I don't want to use the word anal, but I might have to use this. Are you as particular? As particular? No, I just have, haven't I? Are you as particular with me? So when I, especially for the preparation side, I've got obviously, you have your different drum kits. It's like for me, I have the different hardwares as well. Depending, I have like a vintage style of hardware to go with the vintage kits. For the stuff I'm doing, a bit more of a modern, chunky one for the modern kits. But I make sure that I've got everything exactly the same, so all the stick bags, all everything else, exactly in those particular ones. So literally, you go in, you get prepared. You basically I'm taking that out. I know I've got everything in that case. And that case is that. If I take that one in, everything is exactly the same. So I've got the same sticks. I've got the same, bag that I need to keep in there for your bits and bobs. So it doesn't matter which one you take. You always got that preparation. And then in the car or in my bag, I've got some more sticks or more bits and bobs I need to have. Is this just me?
No, preparation should be with everybody, and more imperative. I mean, it should be for everybody, but more imperative as a professional because you're earning a living at it. You've got to understand if the recording session, the studio opens at 9 o'clock, you should be there at 8:30 with a coffee in your hand. You should be there, but it's no good being there at 10 o'clock. The session starts at 11, and now you're late, and now you're rushing because you won't ever do a decent recording when you're rushing around like a blue-eyed fly. You've got to relax. My dad always taught me, you can always kill time, you can't make it up. So get there flipping early, relax, listen to something a bit more, chill out, set your kit up, let them flap about, get yourselves a drink, relax, go to the toilet, come back, chill, and now perform, for goodness sake. And then if you've got something to learn, listen. You can't listen enough when someone's paying you money to do a job. So if you get the demo through, listen, and listen again. Ring up. Are you sure there's no changes that are going on? Because people change stuff all the time. You've got to be prepared for changes. You've got to know how to write down. You haven't got to write down so it's going to get marked if you've done something right or done something wrong. The idea of getting through a session is you'll be able to write something down that makes sense to you, that you can get through that session. It hasn't got to be perfect, right? Of course, you should learn how to read and write music properly, because if you want to be a professional, you're going to come across that. You need to do it. But for people that don't need to write cheat sheets out to get through the session because you're going to get paid, do it. It doesn't really matter. Dennis Chambers can't read. It doesn't matter, right? What you need to do is have a great memory, a great understanding, listen, take note, be professional, write down any cheat sheets that's going to work for you, go out and do the job. If you don't prepare yourself, it's going to bite you on the backside, right? And this business, if you mess up once, it goes around like wildfire. You've got to be. I remember talking to Kenny. This is a very quick story. I talked to Kenny Aronoff, right? We've become really good buddies because I was doing a lot of clinics at Frankfurt Music Fair when I was with Vinyl years ago, and Kenny was doing the Tama drum kit, and we happened to be demoing in the same booth. And I just said to him, Kenny, you're the number one guy, and you have been for donkey's years in the session world, certainly in the rock world, in the session world. How did you manage to do it? He said, Russ, I'm nowhere near the best player. He said, but what I do is I am a nice guy that turns up on time with great equipment, and I do first and second takes. He said, right, there we go. He said, but do you know the thing that the other guys don't do? I create the vibe. And it's the vibe that the producer and the artist want in that studio to get the job done. What can you say to that? Where's the book on vibe?
Yeah. Too right. Gaynor, she's saying, loving this. I can play so much technical stuff, but can't yet improvise with confidence. I'm determined to work on it. Love hearing about people like Russ think about things. It is to say, it's
And I want to hear what Pete's got to say about his preparation. When he get Pete, what happens when you have a session in and it's a little bit all over the place? How do you go about accommodating the potential problems that come up?
Well, most of the stuff I do, and these days it's not a whole lot. You don't know what you're going to play. It's just going in and sight reading on the day, and it's just making sure that you're on top of your reading game, and obviously doing the necessary things that the drums are in good shape and they sound right, and nothing's squeaking, and remembering where you left that can of WD-40. But on the other hand, Tuesday morning I'm doing a session for a singer-songwriter, and I'm going to be playing really, really simple drum parts with hardly any variations and hardly any fills at all. And just over here, at the other side of my desk, there's a notepad where I've been charting stuff out this afternoon, and that's Tuesday morning, and this guy gives me quite a lot of work.
Just tell the people, does it actually bother you? I mean, you probably charting it out to perfection, so how music and drum notation should be charted out. But what I'm saying is, it wouldn't bother you if you got a crotchet rest wrong, or you wrote out a triplet drum thing incorrect, as long as you understood it. Because I want people to realise, I don't want them to get hung up and pressurised and get anxiety because they're not writing things perfect or writing, or understanding things perfect.
Yeah, well, a lot, as long as you know what you mean. I mean, a lot of these things can be interpreted in a whole variety of different ways.
Yeah.
There's lots of different ways notation can be expressed, but the the resultant sound all boils down to the interpretation of the individual player. So, if you're preparing, if you're writing stuff down, for a recording date of some sort, as long as you understand what you mean, that you can sit down and play the thing you heard on the demo, and that it's going to fit with what's going on there. When it's right, it's right, and we're not doing like a music A level exam where we're arguing about the little minutiae of technical differences of note values and expression marks and things like that. It doesn't matter. As long as when it's right, it's right.
Well, because I say, I will alleviate, because people really do get anxious over reading and writing. And I used to say to them, look, the result is you get paid on what you played and what people hear. You don't get paid on the presentation of what you've written down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You could come in with a whole load of charts written on. I mean, like the thing I'm talking about that I'm doing on Tuesday, everything's handwritten, because if it's not a very complicated tune, I can actually handwrite the chart in real time as the demo's playing, and only need to go over it maybe a couple of times, and I'll just like format just a page of manuscript paper into like 4 bars per line, and just figure out where the repeats are and where the coda is, and any kind of bits of phrasing that are going there. And it's for me. I mean, I know there are people who are complete, totally really quick with things like Sibelius and Finale. I mean, I'm quite slow with them, but I can handwrite a workable drum chart in real time.
Mm.
And again, it's all part of the big picture. It's Are you seeing the big picture? Or are you worrying about tens of thousands of individual pixels? And you've got to look at the big picture all the time.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, guys. But just before I come to what to say, there is lots of people watching, and I cannot read all your names out at one go. But thank you ever so much for watching. If you're watching for the first time, if you are, please can you go to our Facebook page, which you are on now, and start following us and liking us, because we've got more of these kind of chat shows. We have different things going on throughout the year, and I've got some amazing, interesting stuff happening in the new year, which I want everybody to know about. So thank you all very much for watching. I just literally can't read the names out quick enough, so I'm just going to leave it there. You can see in the comments who you are. So thank you all for watching. I'm glad you said that, guys, because I've the only sort of work I've been doing in this last since September really is doing some teaching, and I thought, right, do you know what? Let's just have some fun. Let's get these guys to basically sort of have some industry knowledge. They didn't know they was doing, but was basically listening to a song, and I thought, do you know what? We had obviously the 40 years of the death of John Bonham. People know that the Palace Drum Clinic obviously is in Redditch. Redditch is the home of John Bonham. We have this amazing statue, memorial in the centre of Redditch, which I believe you saw it, didn't you, Russ? I took you up there, didn't I?
I went there.
Yeah, Pete's in as well. It's amazing, and I just thought, do you know what? Why don't we listen to some great drumming, some great bands? So we've been listening to some Led Zeppelin tunes, and I gave them loads we'd listen to. I said, right, you choose one you want to play. 9 times out of 10, they basically went to, can I have that one from Thor Ragnarok? Yeah, okay, you can have Immigrant Song. Yeah, let's do that one. And all I was basically telling them I said, look, what I want you to do, I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I want you to go and I call it musical mapping. It's basically, if you look on a map, it basically doesn't give you every single detail of a house or anything like that. It basically tells you how to get from there to there, and a few signposts on the way, maybe. So that's what you want to do. I can show you the way I do it, but I want you, and if it works for you, it works for you. And they came back, and some said, "Well, yeah." I said, "Well, try my way." Oh, that really works. There was no kind of groove written down. It's maybe just hitting things, just stopping here. Vocals, they're coming to that, but that reminds me. It's like, I know exactly where I am. It's a musical map. It doesn't have to be Google Earth. Do you know what I mean? So that's the kind
You
of
only
thing.
need that in a situation like I used to do, is when you go into the West End, because you've had a musical director write out and score out the drum part, and you've got to play exactly that. I
Yeah.
mean, when I did two 5-star records in the 80s, and again, there was no movement on that. They were scored out, and I had to play dot for dot. Now,
Yeah.
in certain musical situations, you have to do that. And if you're not a great reader, you're going to be in trouble. But if you and usually great readers are pretty good writers because they understand the whole procedure of it all. Of course they do. But I always say it's an asset, it's not a necessity. But if you want to earn your living playing drums, you better make it an asset.
Yeah, I think, Pete, you agree with that because you always say it's also a way to learn things quicker as well, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if you have that skill together, it makes you more employable, and it makes there's no point spending 30 quid on a drum book if you don't understand what the notation means, and you understand the how notation works, then you can kind of read between the lines and start to interpret it in your own way. And that's where the real, that's a big part of finding your own voice, is to be able to do that.
Mm.
If your study pathway is all to do with guesswork, and there's always going to be some guesswork. But if that's all you've got going for you, then you are limiting your horizons. And why would anybody want to be able to do less on the instrument? I mean, the more you're able to do, the more it's going to be possible that you can do.
Mm. I like to pride myself because I'm one of these. I can almost read anything you put in front of me, and I like to say I'm like Ron Burgundy. You put anything up in front of me, and I'll read it. But that's because of my training. As we discussed last week, Pete, I think we talked about Buddy Rich. The reason why he sits that height and everything else, it comes from his childhood.
Exactly.
Everything's all kind of stuff. What has gone before. It's obviously comes to provisions like later on as well. And throughout my, especially my, education times, especially when I started out my career, I was playing some ridiculous stuff. You'd literally see Sea of Black, and not necessarily just on the drum kit, on percussion as well, so tuned as well. Some of the stuff you just have to sit down and it almost was unplayable, but you had to play it because 5 weeks later you had to perform it in front of that, and usually a BBC Three radio as well.
And again, yeah. And the other important thing that people need to realise about that is, you can read a page of notation, and you can play it all kinds of different ways. And because notation on drum charts doesn't look like stuff in drum books. It doesn't have letter R and letter L underneath it. That's all for you to sort out. And the more different ways you can do that between your hands and your feet, that to be able to read stuff, play it in as many different ways as possible is really it just adds so much of an additional dimension to your playing ability.
Yeah.
If you see like an eighth rest dotted quarter note, two quarter notes on a chart, and you've only got one way you can phrase that on the drums, then you're always only going to play it that one way. But if you kind of thought about it, how the hands could phrase it in almost like melodically or harmonically in different permutations, then when that little 1 bar figure comes up on a chart, you've got all these different alternatives that are going to help you to just kind of nail it. And again, this is about technique and ability, giving you confidence.
I suppose the other thing we can say along to that is that you will also be asked, if you're working a producer, if you're working for sort of a lead band lead and stuff like that, you may be asked to actually play that differently. And if you can't play that differently because you haven't done it, that's like next.
Well, that depends on the producer and how good their ear is. I mean, with some producers, if they say, "Oh, play it differently," just play exactly what you played and smile more. So, and then there are others who are just a little bit more attuned to the detail and nuance of what we do with our instruments.
And just to add on to that, guys, I don't believe in styles of music, you see. This is one of my controversy things. I don't believe,
Just one of them.
I actually convinced myself and brainwashed myself I don't believe in styles because I didn't want to not like rock or Latin or jazz or punk or drum and bass. What I wanted to embrace was that all of those elements have different ways of playing rhythmical phrases. Now, as a drummer, we learn rhythmical phrases, thousands and thousands of them. Interpretation determines where that sits in the musical project you're involved with. Now, if you're alienating yourself because of a style of music, there's so much beauty in every style of music and rhythmical makeups in every style of music that all you're doing is adding ingredients to yourself. And just like Pete just turned around and said, interpretation. It's interpretation. I played an Afro-Cuban 6/8 in the middle of a track off the first Uriah Heep album I played on. I mean, for goodness sake, it's a classic rock band. What am I doing playing Afro-Cuban 6/8? I'll tell you why, because it fitted. And I played a jazz type of phrase within a funk thing because all I'm playing is what warrants it is that musical, rhythmical phrase at that time sits into that music. It doesn't have to be played in a jazz-orientated way in the funk. I need to make it funky. But it doesn't mean to say that that jazz phrase can't fit into it. All kinds of rhythmical makeups can fit into everything. So you should embrace everything. If you do that, now you start to enjoy other styles, if you want to call it that. All you're doing is widening your spectrum of rhythmical phrases.
Yeah, because you knew that Afro-Cuban 6/8, you didn't have to kind of sit around and scratch your head and try to invent something because you had that in your armory,
That's
in your I hate the expression, in the toolbox, because you knew it. You thought, right, here's something that I know from somewhere else. And if I just kind of put it in this musical context, maybe it works. There you go. Because you knew it, you could use it. Whereas somebody who didn't know that would have had to sit around and try to reinvent the wheel.
That's it.
Definitely. Guys, there's still lots of people coming on. Thank you very much. If you are here to listen to the wise words of Mr. Gilbrook, or if you want to basically just say hi to him, please put in the comments and we'll do our best to read as many as we possibly can. But thank you very much for watching. And also remember to, obviously, if you're on our page already, just like it or follow us because I've lots and lots of different stuff coming up. And obviously past stuff as well. As I say, this is our second series of the chat show. Unfortunately, we are coming to a close because we're coming into the end of the year, and obviously you've got more projects coming on. But we did have our first series, which was 17 weeks full, one a week, you'd be pleased to know. But they're all on the Facebook. They're also on, I've got to update the latest one, but palestdrumclinic.com. They're all on there, and you can see what we actually are about as well, actually on there as well on the website. And also, if you go to my YouTube site, which is just basically type in Palace Drum Clinic, and you'll see everything that's there. Subscribe to that because obviously you'll get the latest video. Because not everyone has Facebook, would you believe? So we try to get out to as many people as we can. So I upload everything onto YouTube as well. So go there, subscribe to it, so you don't miss out on any of the stuff, any of the chats, any of the clinics, which are coming up in the future, and obviously the stuff we have in the past as well. So thank you guys for us. We've got another one here. TJ Biggins. Hey Russell, saw you and Uriah Heep opening for Judas Priest in Edmond last year. You guys totally stole the show. Well, of course they would. They've got Russell on drums, haven't they? I must admit, Russell, when people, especially when obviously you came to the clinic, who I don't know why, but some people actually have never heard of you. They said, it's like, what's it? I said, well, guys, you can't go and listen to Russell. You've got to watch him because you are most probably one of the happiest drummers I think I actually ever know performing. It's incredible. It's like you're so effective in that. But that goes back to obviously what you said earlier on in this evening about you want to basically you are everything is about the drums. You know, you love it and everything else, and you want to every single time you go out and play. You know, you want to create that kind of good feeling.
Listen, why does anyone want to set up, whether you're playing in front of one person or 100,000 people, why would you want to set up the drums and play such a wonderful instrument to create such a wonderful thing and be miserable? I don't, or look at your watch to go home. I mean, that's the time to hang up the sticks.
Yeah, I must admit, Pete, I've seen you smile on many occasions when you've been playing as well. So, it is.
I just have this default setting of looking very serious and focused when I play, and I'm not talented enough to be able to play and smile at the same time. I've said it countless times.
Yeah.
That's what you need to practice.
All this
Mr.
operation.
Carradine will just start smiling every other right hand.
Nikki Fox says, "Hey Russell, lifetime Heep fanatic. Great to see you. Looking forward to Birmingham next year." I suppose obviously there's a lot of Heep fans on. 50th year this year, wasn't it? Really for you guys. So we talked before we came on show. There was a lot of 50s. Obviously came up this year. Great day, 2020. Not a great year, but can you just tell, if things go to plan, what Heat will be doing for theoretically their anniversary, 50 years anniversary?
Well, a brand new show that's very long. Some really cool stuff within that show, because 50 years is very special.
There we
And
go.
we should be going to, as many countries as possible, really. And I can't tell you. I mean, I'm almost brought to tears to try and get out there and play in front of fans again. You know, it's crucified me. This has been my life since I was 4 years old, and being suppressed to play such a musical instrument is just soul destroying. And I just can't get out. Can't wait to get out there with the guys and just perform in front of people.
Yeah, yeah. As I say, we've only got literally 5 minutes left, but I just want to talk to something just sprung to mind when you said about the rest. It's for me. I don't know about you guys. Well, it must be the same for you guys, because I think we think very, very similar. It's therapy, isn't it? It's musical therapy. When you get on those drums, nothing else matters, does it? You know, when you're sitting there, the music, everything comes in. It's therapy, and when you can't get to actually play that, things go. Things are not right in your life, are they?
And being around, being with people you like to be with as well. And what greater company is there than your fellow musicians? Musicians are a great bunch of people. I love being around.
Yeah, yeah. It's
whether that's in working bands, and primarily playing live is my thing, but little bits of studio work as well, or doing the drum industry stuff. Just being talking to and playing for a room full of drummers. It's the best thing. There's nothing like it.
We do say it on so many occasions, but we are such a special breed. We're collective, aren't we? We love hanging about with other drummers. You wouldn't get that. I don't think you do get that as much in the other instruments. But we, that's why we have all these drum shows and stuff. And that's obviously the Palace Drum Clinic is another place. I'm trying to get that kind of club happening so we can all join in together and literally embrace the drums and stuff like that.
The great thing about drums, if I may just for a moment, is it's an extension of your personality in a way that no other instrument perhaps is, because I mean you can buy a Chinese violin for a few pounds, or you can buy a Stradivarius for like millions. But a violin looks like a violin. A tenor saxophone looks like a tenor saxophone. The drums, we've got three of us here, and I know the kind of setup that Russ uses, and you, Matt, as well, and obviously for me, they're all different, and you can customize and vary a drum set in a far greater way than is possible with any other musical instrument. I can't think of another one. And
And
I've got a piano over here. It's got 88 keys on it. They all do. I once wrote a blog post.
The problem you've got is if you have got a little Chinese 20 quid violin and a Stradivarius, they only last about half a bar with me when I'm bashing the shit out of the drums with them.
it's just driftwood, isn't it? At the end of the day, that's all it is. Yeah.
If I can just tag on to that, what Pete was saying, and you, Matt, what I want people to understand is music is such a therapy. If you realise just what Uriah Heep did with the first band to go to Russia, right, in 1985, 86. The first band to go through a lot of those Eastern European, and they helped those people through those excruciating, horrible communist times. Music has such a connection with everybody. You can remember your first love. You can remember when you were at school, the first disco, the first gig, when you did that. The connection and the emotion that you get from music. That's why, yes, as a community, as a drumming community, we've got to do it. We've got to connect music as a whole. It seems to be wavering at the moment. All this rubbish that's out at the moment where it's not even musical instruments on it. Everything's done on a flipping computer. They're losing the magic of what music was all about, the created expression that everybody does. And basically, it's such a close to photographs. You look at a photograph, you immediately go back to that spot, that moment in time. Well, music does the same. We can't lose that.
Yeah, I say I don't really know any other art form that can actually move you to tears by just using your ears as well. You know, it's an incredible thing, guys. We could talk for absolutely hours, but again, time has absolutely flown by. Just a couple of things people want us to read out to. Richmond Well Said Metal, thank you very much. Rick Lebonte, I think it's Russell rocks. Russ is more than just a rock drummer. He respects jazz and progressive music. He's a powerhouse drummer, but he plays very heavy and very humble. That's nice. He's amazing to watch. Passion is contagious. Well, we said that, didn't we? Do you know what? I could sit. I think it's one of those instruments that you have to physically go and hear in and see, because we've all got this on, all the drummers albums, the buddies and you can sit there and we appreciate what they're doing on the record. It's nothing like actually watching, the sweat, the tears, the dexterity and everything that basically happens, which you actually don't get basically from just those albums. So when we will get back out, guys, and we definitely will, hopefully very very shortly, go and support whoever it is out there. Go and watch them. We love performing to people. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this business to start with. So. Go and just say, if you've enjoyed the performance, do you know what? I love your performance. Even if it's basically because they played the simplest thing but had the biggest grin. It's down to that. Music basically matters. It's therapy. It's soul. Without it, I think life will be a very, very dull place.
Yeah.
So, guys, thank you very much for watching. Thank you. Another great evening. Thank you, gentlemen. Hashtag replay. So can attend this time. We're still going, Dave Brown. We're still going. But no, if you are watching on replay, yes, thank you very much, Dave. Hashtag replay. Amazing things happening. So. Just before I say, as we sign off and say my big, massive thank yous, I just want to say that we're not here next week. Because here in this little brown envelope here, I will show you again for people who haven't logged on in the morning, small in the beginning. That is now the keys to the new home on the Palace Drum Clinic, and I will basically be turning that into an amazing studio for the 19th, which are hopefully, all being well, I will be in there doing this chat show, the last one of the series and the last one of the year, from there to go off with a big bang to show you what's happening in the new year. and also hopefully with a big guest as well. But we've had all the guests from this year have been absolutely massive in knowledge as well as music ability and everything else that goes with it. And these two guests, shadows, without a doubt, shadow of doubt rather. Exactly the same, and I will be lost without my panel member, Rob. He's obviously out here, but also with me tonight would be Pete. Thank you very much for your wise words. Thank you very much for this year, if I don't say it. It's been absolutely amazing years, and I've loved every single Saturday night we've spent together.
Me too.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Russell, what can I say? It's been an absolute privilege to, obviously, first of all, having your Palace Drum Clinic. It's all online. You can see little highlights of basically what Russ was talking about. And he makes me laugh every time I'm with him. And I thank you very much for just making me laugh. It's just the highlight when I see you. Just make me laugh. It's amazing. And amazing as drama. And obviously, let's get back to some live gigs. Good luck with the 50th anniversary when you can get back to it. And thank you very much for being on the PD Chat Show as well. I hope you've enjoyed yourself.
Fantastic. No, I honestly, if I can just give one little bit of advice to anybody, and it helps one drummer, job done. And it's always great to catch up with Pete and yourself. And thanks a million for doing what you're doing and keeping everything going.
Great to have you in the house.
Yeah, we will keep things going as long as everybody wants it out there. So, so thank you very much, guys. As always, I say this every single time. Thank you also out there for watching, because if it wasn't for you guys, we'll be talking to ourselves, which we don't mind, but we love sharing the wealth, the love, and everything else to do with it. So thank you very much, guys, for watching. Now, you guys stay safe. Remember, we're not here next week, but we will be here on the 19th. So you can have a week off. I don't know if there's strictly a finals on. I ain't got a clue, because we're here talking about the most important instrument ever in history, which is the drum. So there we go. So thank you very much. I can see all the comments there. I'm not going to read them all out, but I'm just going to say thank you very much for writing the comments, and thank you very much, guys, for watching another PD Chat Show. Remember to follow us and obviously like the page, because you can get more of this stuff coming up, especially some amazing stuff in the new year. So thanks again, Pete, and thanks again to our special guest, Russell. We'll see you again on the 19th. That is the 19th at 8:30. Hopefully, all being well, if I've got a good hand for paintbrushing, from the PD Cave. So everyone stay safe, take care, and we'll see you again on the 19th. Good night, everyone.